about what's happening over there, particularly some of the latest polls in the U.S. presidential race. I'm talking about NBC News. Their most recent poll has this tied at 48-48, which doesn't sound like much until you realize that the previous poll they took had Harris with a 5-point lead. Annelise Nielsen joins me now from the battleground state of Georgia. Annelise, tell us about this poll and what's it telling you?
Well, look, it's telling us that the dial's not moving in favor of the campaign that has a lot more money. Kamala Harris's recent haul is $1 billion. And keep in mind, for the Donald Trump campaign, they've raised about a third of that. And in the meantime, they've had to fund messy primaries. They've had to fund his legal campaigns. And so they're coming at this from behind. And in these elections, the favor is always with the underdog. Everyone wants to be backing the underdog. They want to see momentum. And this is why this is such a critical moment, because Kamala Harris has had the momentum coming in late, all that joy with the campaign announcement that Biden was stepping aside. They had this new chance. And it's not maintaining up until Election Day. So this is a really critical juncture for the Trump campaign to say, hey, look, we've got momentum. And the thing I keep hearing from people is they say, well, US elections are always close. They're not always close.
No.
This is an absolute knife edge. Reagan came in on an absolute landslide. America has done landslides before. And what we have really, and I can tell you from talking to voters on the ground, is people just aren't really happy with either candidate option. And so they're waiting to the last minute and they're going to pick the one they dislike the least.
Well, let's just go into some of that polling, though, too, because the Real Clear Politics map has now flipped a couple of states here. They've got Nevada and Michigan now going to Trump, which gives him a huge electoral college lead. Do you buy this? And do you think that some of these swing states here, the internal polling, there's been reports that the Harris campaign is really quite concerned about what's happening in places like Michigan and Pennsylvania, that they've got to win?
Oh, look, I believe it because we're seeing the tone change. Watching Barack Obama chastise black men for not supporting Kamala Harris because they're not feeling a woman, that is not the same tone of joy that we saw just a few months ago at the DNC. So I think that this polling is starting to spook people within the campaign, and it is what we're seeing on the ground. We've only been in Georgia for one day, but we've been in North Carolina and Arizona. The enthusiasm levels are down, and that's critical in a non-compulsory voting system, which I will say ad nauseum because Australians always seem shocked by this.
Yeah.
But this is what really defines things, is turnout. So I would believe that there is a collapse of support in Michigan in particular. They haven't done enough to assuade the Arab voters there. And just remember, too, that Trump voters tend to poll under. They
That's
always
right.
tend to poll under. In previous elections, we've seen that it's usually a few points off. So they're working on the assumption that that's the case again.
Well, and Annelise, too, isn't it the case that, just the way the Electoral College works is for a Democrat to win on the popular vote, their popular vote has to be higher to get some of those smaller states to get the number of electoral votes that they also need. But also, the other thing, too, tell me if I'm wrong here, I'm getting a little bit of a 2016 vibe here, because back then also Trump seems to be doing, again now, many more events than Kamala Harris. I'm seeing him doing an awful lot of traveling, an awful lot of, getting out in front of people and doing that sort of retail politicking there. Is there just a retail politicking gap between the people that Harris is getting in front of and the people that Trump is getting in front of?
Oh, big time. And this is the problem that the Kamala campaign's faced, is now she's avoided doing media so much. She's been so outnumbered by Trump that when she does do this week of media, the focus is intense. The scrutiny is there because people haven't heard from her. And so we're overanalyzing every single little bit because we haven't had a chance to do that before. She still hasn't done a press conference. We've seen a handful from Donald Trump already in the midst of, I think it was 78 interviews he's done since the convention. And so I think that they're being outplayed on that front. And also J.D. Vance has kind of come home to roost finally for them. He's been a huge liability for the campaign for so long after the childless cat lady's comments and how he refused to back down on them, was very sarcastic with it. He was seen as such an issue. Now he's a really effective attack dog. He was doing the Sunday morning shows. He really owned a lot of the narratives around immigration and outperformed Tim Walz. And so all the Republicans who backed him, including Donald Trump's closest allies, his family, are saying, hey, look, this is why we picked the guy. He's really really good at
And
doing these
just on
interviews,
that-
doing this stuff, and we've got the narrative back.
And just on that, Annelise Nielsen, just very, very quickly here, Tim Walz, it seems like he's really losing momentum, losing altitude, and I've only got 20 seconds here, but just tell us about how his attempts to kind of win back male voters to the Kamala campaign has gone.
Oh man, I don't know if you have the footage there, but of him going pheasant hunting and he had trouble loading his gun. Those are the kind of pictures that just go on loop. They go on social media, and it just looks like, again, they've lost the momentum. Momentum is everything in these campaigns, and this has been an absolutely critical week.
Annelise Nielsen, thank you so much for your time here this evening. Been absolutely fantastic as we move forward in this campaign on a complete knife edge. But as you say, it does look at this point like the momentum is with the Trump campaign. Still a few weeks to go, so we'll see. And I'll be joining you in the States soon. Thank you so much, Annelise Nielsen.